Alright, hello everybody. Gonna try and do this battle report via video form. I often like to do these anyways on my own through text, or just kind of talking about it with people like over Discord. But I figured I'd do something through video form, just to kind of show things visually. It kind of also just helps me self-reflect as well when I draw things out. Yeah, so played against a guy called Suho, great guy, local guy that plays here, and it was a good game. First time I actually was facing Chaos Space Marines, so this was a big game for me because just learning a new faction. Yeah, so let's just dive right in. So did win 78-64, as you can see there on the left. You can already see, start kind of preemptively talk a little bit about what happened in the game, but you can already see I did really well on focus on primary. I didn't do as well with my secondaries. Just had some duds, especially at the beginning. But that's okay. That's just the way it is, and I focused on my game plan. So let's talk about that game plan. So Scorched Earth. So with Scorched Earth, something I have to be aware of is if I was going first, then I wanted to get rid of the middle objective. If I was going second, then get rid of my expansion, which honestly could be either one of these. It was really sort of a matter of which one, how I sort of placed myself, how aggressive he was as well, and sort of where we could actually um, deploy. So I was going to keep my options open if I had to scorch and burn either one. If I was going first, then it was pretty much clear cut. I'm going to have to try and burn this one in round 4 so that I could still score points on my natural wherever I was on round 5. But well, that ended up not being the case, so we'll explain why here. Yep, so you see one first. But before we talk about that, I'll just kind of go over a little bit my thought process of this matchup against Chaos Space Marines. So I had to learn their faction. One of the big things is their Focus of Hatred, which basically is their Chaos Oath moment. Just doesn't get the +1 to wound, but it does get real hits on one particular target he picks. So I had to be, and I was very conscious of this. I think going into the game that I couldn't just stick something out here or out here or even like out here because he could pretty much just focus fire it and put everything down. You got 2 predators. He has chosen with Fabulous Balance. He's got Noise Marines. He's got 2 units of Legionaries, both led by Chaos Lords, 4 Talons, and Obliterators in reserve. So there's a lot of damage output here that he could probably do to whatever I put out in the open. So I had to really be careful about what I exposed because it was most likely be his Focus of Hatred, and he would just be able to tee off on it. Um, so yeah, so that was kind of what I was thinking about. I knew that he was bringing 2 rhinos, and I was pretty much could guess that at least some of the legionaries were going to go in there, and the chosen were going to go in the other one. So knowing that he had these 2 transport units, and on this, especially on this map, I was pretty sort of conscious that he could easily stage here, get guys in and stage here, and then maybe he could hop out here and like charge into wherever they need to, or even get all the way up here, stage something like this, and then still be able to get into my side easily and with pretty much relative safety because I can't shoot down this line because it's blocked. Can't shoot down this line blocked as well, so he could easily stage it like that, or even like this, or maybe all the way down here like this, and get in pretty easily, especially this one as well. And could get in with relative safety firing lines in terms, I really had these 2 that I was kind of really thinking about, maybe a bit sort of here. If they could get into the ruin, if my DDAs could get to the ruin as well, then I could probably do something like this. So there were some firing lines, but I knew kind of a lot of it stemmed from basically being in this area to be able to shoot this way and shoot this way. Oops, sorry. Shoot this way, and if I could kind of peek out from this corner, somehow get something here, which I was able to do later in the game, and then something is somewhere around here so that I can get a lurk down this line. And if I need to, I can get into the ruin and look down here, or even look down sort of like that, because there is a gap there that you kind of go through. So in terms of staging and looking at the map, and also considering what he was able to do, I was kind of thinking like DDA would be somewhere here and here, and then the king start here, but can move to anywhere in the middle as he needs really to kind of fire down or go through walls. If I need to go through this wall or go through this wall, I had options. And if I really need to, I could even go through that wall as well. So, yep, I was just really worried about his staging. So that's one thing I was thinking about a lot. Knew he had 2 predators, and so was also very conscious of the firing lines that they could get out off back on me as well, same way, opposite direction. So in the end, he had a lot of firepower, and I just had to be really careful. So, oh, he also had these warp talons, which I knew they would be a rapid ingress threat, and so if they kill something, they can just go right back into reserves, and they move 12 inches. So I was definitely conscious of them and making sure that on Crucible Battle, I didn't think he was going to be able to drop anything early, but I knew that if I started to move out towards the objectives, that I could potentially leave pockets wherever I was. So screening was also really important. All right, so talked about the mission and the objective and all that. So in terms of deployment here, it was Crucible Battle, and what I was really thinking is trying to be careful about how I deploy based on where he was putting these predators. He showed pretty early on that he was going to be mostly heavy on this side of the board. Didn't really put anything over here, and a lot of things were up top. And I kind of mirrored that, not intentionally, but just also because naturally with this board, especially with this home ruin that we both have, it's kind of the safest space to kind of tuck and hide everything, which, as you can see, we both did. He did put a unit of noise marines down here, which I was aware of and a little bit worried about because I knew they could kind of come out this way, and if they could just get onto the ruin, then they could see quite a lot into my home. So I had to be careful of that. One of the big things, though, is I wanted to make sure that I had both DDAs, like I said, controlling the firing lanes. So I placed them, funny enough, not out there. I placed them back here, purely because if this space here is a bit open, it's pretty easy to get shot up from here. And with the deployment just being that line there, I didn't really want to put the DDA here. I could have maybe put it here, but still, no matter what, you're seeing everything in this line. I could have maybe squeezed it something like this, perhaps, but I just didn't think it was worth putting it out there in case he managed to get a really good sort of first turn. Maybe pushed up here or pushed up here, and then pretty much already had units like this across the middle, and then I'd be kind of screwed because he'd get free line of sight into whatever I needed. So I kind of played my DDAs pretty safe. This guy was exposed to this, but otherwise he was kind of clear, and I made sure to kind of measure this sort of, whoops, measure this line there, make sure that was clear, and then kept the bottom DDA out of anything line of sight down here. So pretty much, as you can see, tucked everything in this sort of little box here, outside of those two firing lanes. So we'll see. And I did know that one of the biggest things, he doesn't have any scout or infiltrate, so no man's land is free for me at this point. And knowing that I've got flayed ones, which are down here, I got Tomb Blades, which I ended up putting up here. I'll talk about that in a moment. I knew I had to take space, and if I could take space early, I was going to, because I just could not let these rhinos get up in my face and start dropping guys off too quickly. So yeah, so that was the pretty much the deployment. He did actually leave all he had 2 units of obliterators that he had in reserves, and these guys were I assumed they were gonna be in reserve. So really, I was very conscious that his obliterators could come down pretty much anywhere along this line, and if I was not careful, somewhere in my back line. And so, not knowing where they were going to go has also kept me quite conservative because they can pack quite a punch. So, let's talk a little bit about the beginning. So, just to clarify here, my flayed ones went here just because I wanted to have some kind of sort of screen presence in this way in case this rhino came up or these noise marines came up. So I needed something to kind of block them and then also give me a bit of a buffer before you hit the race too quickly. I couldn't afford to lose the race too early because once I lose the race in this matchup, if these guys are gone, I mean, Szeras is my only real other choice to kind of hold objectives, but even then, he can only do so much on his own. I really didn't have anything else to hold objectives, so I really had to make sure these wraiths stayed alive. They did have a reanimator with them, but they could also do only so much. So played ones are there, kind of providing a screen of some kind. If I went first, then I could screen them out like maybe here, or if I really need to put them on the open here, just to kind of put some kind of wall and extend the wall against this rhino. And then Tomb Blades was interesting. I didn't really know where to kind of put them at the beginning. Had thought about maybe they go here. They can scout 9, move 12, shoot if there was anything sort of here, shoot that, or shoot here. But then I was trying to think about they did get to this point, and they got to shoot if that's about, I think that's about 12 inches there. Actually, I think that's almost exactly 12 inches. Look at that. If they move another 6, they're only really going something like that. And, and that doesn't really help me in terms of getting anything out this way. That doesn't really help me by blocking them here. What I was more concerned about is blocking this. So what I was really concerned about was making sure that this Rhino doesn't get all the way up here and gets a nice staging point. Because if that Rhino was able to kind of stage here, then he could easily have units get out, touch objective, and so with his reactive move, he can easily get back in, and that would have been a bit of a worry. So I could have also had them perhaps down here. The problem is the terrain will require me to go around long ways, sort of like that, and that wasn't really going to work. Maybe they could have gone sort of up the middle, and I thought about that. They could like scout about 9, move 12, maybe shoot something they could see, but then this corner and this corner kind of blocks a lot of that line of sight. So really, I'd have to somehow be able to see through there, which he also stayed away from. So in the end, I decided, you know what, I'm going to go up this way and somehow block something like this to at least buy myself some time so this Rhino can't make it all the way over. That's what I did. So that's why they went there. So in the end, I did get first turn, which was great. So what I ended up doing was I moved those, they scouted up to about here, moved their 12, had an advance as well, so they got to about here. And that was huge. Being able to stop this Rhino, just only being able to get there, was a big deal. And that was, you'll see why in a moment. So let's go over to the first move. So got here, and I had my flayed one stay. The objective went like, actually the objective goes like that. And I made sure to keep my flayed one sort of outside the objective, just in case on his turn he got overwhelming force or storm hostile objective, things like that. Like this would not be an option for him. So I moved up. Wraiths, I actually did not touch the objective. I kind of staged them back here. I shifted them up a bit, but really they kind of were happy here. I did know that there was a line here that he could get towards, but I knew that the ruin was going to kind of block a lot of line of sight, and I didn't think he could get many models to touch the ruin in order to see, to get onto the ruin. So I measured out pretty much they had 6 inches. They cannot advance and shoot or anything like that. Well, he can advance and shoot for 1 CP, but even then, at most, they're getting to like somewhere around here. So first turn, I knew I'd be safe. Really, I could have probably, in hindsight, put Wraiths here as well, just as a bit of a move block in case he wanted to step over. So the Wraiths don't really need to do anything. They can kind of just chill there. Tomb Blades managed to make a nice move up, and they managed to block here, which is great, which means his Rhino can only get to about really there to stay outside engagement range, and can't get close to this ruin and actually deploy on there. So that was a nice little sort of move block that I staged up there. And then what I decided to do was, knowing that the Tomb Blades were probably going to die in the first turn, I decided to put up the Scarabs as a second force, so that on my following turn, Scarabs can then do the same and really kind of just keep this unit here and kind of sort of in a way draw sort of a line here in some way. Well, maybe not that big, maybe just sort of like that. After the Tomb Blaze there, the Scarabs would do the same thing, and then that way would keep my objective relatively safe here in the top. So first turn, kind of didn't do very well in secondaries because I drew Assassination and Mark for Death. Terrible draw. Sometimes it happens. So I was like, you know what, never mind. I do have Imotekh sitting back here in the corner, so I decided to, since I got 2 CP, decided to use 1 CP to try and cycle it, and then of course I draw Bring It Down. So pretty bad draws for the opening turn, so never mind. We just accept we don't get any points for those. Maybe hold Bring It Down if he gets aggressive enough in his first turn. I was thinking maybe I could get a kill on something that might come out, but it was unlikely anyways. And you gotta see what happened there. So secondaries we're not going to bother with. We're just going to touch this objective with Szeras and the Scarabs. We've got our home going into his turn 1, or his first turn in round 1. I think I knew that I was most likely going to get score 10 going into round 2, so I was happy with just the way this all staged up. I did have Ophidians here, interestingly enough. After I sort of moved everything out here, I realized I kind of left like a bit of this sort of shape formation. And if he wanted to, I don't know if I didn't measure it out, but I don't think his warp talons could have got there, but they maybe would have had something, or he could have actually deep struck obliterates maybe here, and I kind of really didn't want that. This was a bit of a pocket that I was kind of worried about, so I decided to advance my Ophidians up and kind of create another wall here, so that way I was kind of had a bit of a this formation, and so at most he could probably drop his guys here, which I was fine if he did. Actually, I believe with the 9-inch coverage, the best he could do was here, and so really thinking something like this was where he could really drop it. And I was fine if he dropped obviously anything here, because that was out in the open. And if he dropped anything here, well, that's fine. That's his stage ruin anyways. So I kind of kept that clear. I do have an Overlord back here, who's giving the reroll hits, the Dread Majesty aura, so reroll hits of 1s and wounds of 1. Just because the King will have his aura, so the King can kind of give the aura around here. And then the Overlord can give his aura around here as well. Plus, I'm also screening anything that comes out from here as well. So Imotekh is screening this side, and Overlord is screening this side, pretty much covering my entire half of my deployment. So that is pretty much my turn. Nothing too special there. I did actually move. One of the things I did do is I had my DDA watch this early. You'll see everything else stayed the same, but I also gave him this as a token for the Chrono-impedance field, so -1 damage enhancement. And I put that there because I kind of wanted both of them to deter any aggressive movement here or here. Obviously, I knew that he could probably tuck down at the bottom if he wanted to, but it was hoping that maybe this sort of space would be covered, and that he could just kind of toe onto an objective or anything like that. And if he had to move, then he would really have to kind of come all the way down here and try to get just because I had like a line, something like that. It was something along those lines. You'd have to go onto this side, which hindsight now I realize is, I'm not too sure about it because I left this sort of spot open. Maybe if I had the flayed ones out like this, it would have also helped, but I also didn't want the flayed ones to just get shot right away for the Noise Marines, so I'm not sure if this actually helped. Alright, let's go into his turn. Oh, and the Ophidians, just to remember, I put them out there, but I knew I could pick them up at the end of his turn because I didn't think he was going to get engagement range of these guys no matter what, so they were there just to deter any turn 1 stuff, but now I think about it, turn 1 he couldn't get there, and 2, turn 1 he couldn't drop anything in Deep Strike because he doesn't have anything to drop turn 1, so really, actually, now that I think about it, these guys didn't even need to be there. I could have just left it open for turn 1, but they were there in case I needed them. And they weren't really doing as much back here anyways. So this is the example just from my side of the deployment, so you can see really here, this is that angle that DDA is watching, and there is another angle down here for his Predator, so I just wanted to make sure I was well out of that because the Predator right here could see that. He did have another Predator back here, and I did not think it could go, because he could advance his shoot, so actually, so he could get to just about there, but I didn't think the Predator could kill my DDA with -1 enhancement, -1 damage, so I wasn't afraid of just sticking him out there and watching that line. So on his turn, as you can see here, what he ends up doing, he draws Mark for Death and Secure No Man's Land, so he gets guaranteed 2 points here because he nominates the Tomb Blades. As you can see, they die here. Easily get killed there. The Warp Talons were the ones that charged into him, and then the Warp Talons got picked up, which was expected. Then the Rhino charged into him and kind of just sat there for a little bit. Then his other Rhino that was here managed to move down, and like I said, he kind of avoided that line right here. And so what he actually did is he actually had his Chosen hop out first. They staged here. Rhino then moved up, and then the Noise Marines moved in and jumped in. So now I was kind of dealt with that issue of I can screen these guys, or I can screen the Noise Marines that could easily jump out here or in here and get lines on everything. Or I would have to be careful of the Chosen walking up and just charging this way. So in this case here, I was a bit overloaded with threats, and I wonder if maybe the Scarabs, which were here, don't need to be here. but then you'll see actually they end up coming in clutch. So it was a bit of a tricky situation because I had threat, threat, and threat, and I just didn't have that many pieces technically to hold them more than one turn. Um, but technically I could have the Tomb Blades have done what they did. Maybe the Scarabs could have come here to screen this or this, and between the Scarabs and the Flayed ones. But then round 2, he's able to just come right through, and I don't know if I can hold off that much longer after round 2 if I start losing pieces. So that's kind of where I was like, all right, well, I will make sure that this is secure by making sure I've got another level with the Scarabs coming up after the Tomb Blades dying. And here, if he really needs to, I will have to use the Flayed ones. Plus, if I need to use the Wraiths, I can use the Wraiths to block. And if he kills the Wraiths, well, then maybe that'll be my turn to try to clap back and see if I can survive. Anyways, he comes up, like I said, stages that. His cultist mob stickies this, and he starts to move them up a little bit. This predator that was back here moves up. One of the biggest things was he was going to try to get the predator to come all the way up here. However, he rolled, his advance didn't get him quite past this line, I believe it was. So in the end, he decided to just kind of stage it here, and it could watch a little bit there. Still couldn't quite see Szeras also because Szeras is blown up anyways, but doesn't have a line on anything over there. And he didn't really need to come down here, so he was kind of just staging that guy there. So that was his movement. He easily scores secure with this one. Fortunately, he doesn't get secure for 2 objectives, so he only gets the 2 points for it instead of the 5, which I think was really important because I managed to block this here. And Mark of Death was the 2 blades, so easy enough. So straightforward round from him. All right, so turn 2 for me, I keep bringing it down, and then I get behind enemy lines. So another, as you can see, and then more duds. So really, that is 4 duds in the first 2 turns, even with a cycle. I really should have also CPs rerolled and could have got secure no man's land. But in the moment, I kind of forgot about that. I was thinking about so many other things about how I wanted to respond to the table situation, and then I actually didn't end up rerolling, which was fine. I still, as you can see, managed to score decently for the rest of the secondaries, but maybe I could have gotten 5 points earlier. Maybe that would have made a difference. I got the 5 here instead. Doesn't matter. Bring It Down I did hold on to because I knew now that his Rhino was out here, and it was either that one or maybe this Predator comes out here that I could try to kill. So I thought maybe I'll hold on to Bring It Down. So I held on to it. Anyways, so again, secondaries, we're not going to think about. We're just going to think about scoring primary. So right away I scored 10 because I actually end up holding this one and this one. So that was an easy 10 right there. Not going to burn anything this early in the game. And so was just going to chill out. So picked up the Ophidians. I placed them back down here just to make sure that this entire sort of half was screened. Imotekh, you can see back here, is screened. So that's kind of the first things I was making sure of, is making sure that my entire sort of half the deployment was screened from any deep strike. The Scarabs, you can kind of see one here, but the Scarabs, what I did is I moved them up, and I then created a wall here so that Rhino was really jailed in place for another turn. And I think that was really important. Having them kind of block him here meant that that Rhino couldn't really get involved, and the Legionnaires can't really do anything until turn 3. And I think that was huge because they would have to spend turn 3 coming up, and I would already be scoring at least 20 points before they could actually do anything about it. Szeras just towing on here, chilling out. And the Doomsday Arc was here looking down this objective. I've now moved it up here to look down that objective, and it was just basically watching this line, threatening anything to come up here. Hindsight, though, I don't really think I need to be doing that. Part of the reason was I also wanted to make sure that he was out of line of the sight of this, so he would only expose himself to one or the other. But honestly, I don't really... He still had the -1 enhancement on him. I kept it on him because he was exposed. But this was something I was reflecting on after the game, is that I was a little more aggressive with my DDAs than I really needed to be in terms of positioning them into firing lanes. I probably should have just waited for him to come out first before I actually moved this guy up. The other DDA, speaking of which, was here, and I moved him over to get a line because once he was wholly within the ruin, he can see through the windows, or the back end of it could actually see across this lower terrain towards this way. Probably didn't really need to do that. Again, putting him up here really didn't help. I did actually have the Menhirs move up a bit, just purely to screen off deep strike from this corner. I really didn't want to drop anything there. And between the Scarab's 9 inches and the Menhir 9 inches, he had to drop stuff here. I think that was really important to stop him from dropping anything. So the Menhirs also were able to kind of get a line here if they needed to. I can't remember now off the top of my head if they could see the Rhino. I don't think they could based off this photo, but they were there in case anything came out. So then there's the Wraiths just came up, and I just put a Wraith on there just to deny the OC here. I didn't want to take it because I didn't want to give him Storm Hostile or Overwhelming Force. I just wanted to equal it and then neutralize this. I could see there. Oh yes, what I did with the Wraith was I did fly over mortals, and because I had one Wraith here, and it was just enough because I also gave the +2 inch advance at the beginning with the King before I moved him. So the Wraiths managed, I think, like the Wraiths here or something, managed to just get back in time, something like that. We measured it out and checked that he could just touch the end of the Rhino. And as you can see here, 6 moves left, so I dealt 4 mortal wounds to the Rhino and the flyover mortals, which is great, because 6 moves left is exactly what him and here needs, if they can get one of their shots off to kill it. Blade ones moved out, and they created this screen where they kind of did something like this, and I really did that one so that if for some reason they got shot at and survived, I could actually reactive move and maybe get onto the objective and touch it. Or if they survive somehow in this turn, which I didn't think they would, but if they ever did, it would have given me an option to actually get onto the objective and just move over there and touch it. But it didn't matter; they died anyways. They were really there just to make sure that this brick didn't have a free shot to come and walk out, charge, and then potentially wipe the race with everything else he was going to throw at me. So move block there, sort of move block in here. As you can see, in round 2, I've kept him back pretty far back and hardly out of his deployment up top, and he's only really been able to stage to 1 ruin down below, and I think that's really important for me because then that really gave me a lot of control and space over this area, and by doing that, I really a lot of the time was just focusing on this, which was huge. So that was my turn. Fortunately, didn't score anything. Don't get behind me lines. Really, I probably could have got behind me lines because he did leave a gap back here. And also, actually, I'll show from the previous photo. So what he ended up doing was, moving the Rhino up here. I could have probably dropped something back here for behind enemy lines, or back here, or maybe here, something like that. I think there was a pocket there somewhere, like there, to get that with the Ophidians. Again, just a little, in hindsight, probably could have got scored a couple points there, but in the end, I needed also them to screen out this back end. But I think there was like maybe a gap here that I need to make sure I covered. But I'm actually, pretty sure with the DDA and its King, that was covered. Maybe there was a gap, I'm not sure. I can't remember now. But anyways, that's where we are at round 2, so pretty straightforward first 2 turns for me. I did have the Hexmark here watching, kind of threatening any Overwatch if the Chosen did decide to come out. I don't know how much it was going to do with only 6 shots, but perhaps maybe could have taken 1 or 2 guys off. And also the King was there just in case they had to kind of shoot anything or Overwatch. And that was kind of partly why the DDA was there, but you'll see why this becomes a problem for me in a moment. So on his turn, what he ends up doing, and I remember to write this down, this was only his movement, so I'll explain a bit after what he does. He moves out, so the cultist mobs start to move out. He completely leaves this back open, which I was taking note of to see if I could perhaps maybe drop my Ophidians here and take his Tome objective at some point, so I was kind of planning for that. But what he did was his Predator from up here moves out to get a line on something here. I don't think he actually shot the DDA, or maybe he did. So there, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I don't think he did. But the other Predator did come out, so he could get a line on, and I believe there was a gap where you could see just the tip was something like this of the DDA, something like that. So he could shoot into the DDA. Oh, that's what it is. He came out so he could do this. So he was getting this firing lane, and then he dropped the Noise Marines out and moved his 2 heavy weapons so they could barely just see into the window. And we determined that there was like another window here that it could see. It was something like that. It was something crazy. So I was thinking, okay, and he also nominated this as the focus of hatred. So he was going to oath and try to pop this DDA because on his turn he drew extend battle lines and bring it down. So this was going to be his bring it down target, and extend battle lines. He was going to control this with the Rhino and the Noise Marines jumping up. So we ended up doing, because I had screened him off, he actually moved his Chosen back into it. So he was just hopping in and out of this Rhino. So initially it was here, they hopped out, staged here, and then the Rhino moved up, Noise Marines got in. And then Noise Marines get back out, and then the Chosen, because they were kind of blocked, but also he got, I guess, a bit of extra free movement. He got into the Rhino, and then following turn he can easily jump out wherever he needs to go. The Chosen are back in the Rhino, Noise Marines are kind of like this, and because he left a gap, I decided to rapid ingress my Scorpex in No Man's Land and give a sort of a bit of a threat to actually come this way and maybe perhaps tie this guy up so that he can't shoot. He'd have to fall back. And I was hoping to tie him up so that I could tie him up something like this, and then he'd have to fall back. And if he can fall back and shoot, that's fine, but he'd have to fall back this way, and then would be out of line of sight of shooting the following turn. So, or they were just there to kind of hit whatever was here. So I just put them there as a bit of another threat for him. So he comes in, and he does oath the DDA, and I believe he fires with, I want to say it's like this guy first he fired with, and took some chunks off of him, and I believe he also fired with this guy before I used my, well, I popped a lot of CP here. At this point I had like 5 CP. I popped Rapid Ingress for 1, then I also popped, actually I wrote it down here, 1 sec. Oh yeah, Rapid Ingress for 1. 2 CP for -1 to wound on my DDAs. My DDA here. Whoop, that's a big hit. There we go. 2 CP -1 to wound on higher strength. And then I also popped Reactive Move, and I only rolled 2 inches. So I was hoping to get 3 or 4 to kind of move him back off, just to get out of line of sight of the windows here for the heavy weapons, because I really didn't want them to also be able to go on. I think I could have, and I was planning to basically somehow tank 2 of those guys, but not also the heavy weapons because they did some scary damage. Fortunately, I only rolled a 2, so I was able to just about pivot, and I believe I pivoted him something like this. I can't remember off the top of my head now, but it was able to get one guy to see and the other guy couldn't, and I think that made a difference. Ended up leaving the DDA on, I believe it was like 5 or 6 wounds, something like that, on the DDA, and I think it really helped keep the DDA alive. I did have to also command reroll one of the saves. So I burned all my CP to keep this guy alive. In hindsight, really, he could have just stayed here, and he would have been fine, just kind of chilling there, and maybe he would have gone for this, but he isn't able to get the stuff on a line of him, so this DDA was kind of center for all the attacks, which I really shouldn't have done. He didn't have to be there as well. So yeah, that was his turn. He does get extend for this, and he doesn't get bring it down, fortunately, because the DDA survives. And I believe, yeah, that's pretty much his turn. So going into my round 3 now, finally, I draw Secure No Man's Land. So I get my bring it down target because the Rhino, as mentioned here, was down to 4 wounds. Because, what did he do? I believe I did another, how did I get 2 more wounds off of him? He was at 6. I can't remember now how I got 2 more wounds off of him on his turn. Because on my turn, you can see the dice here is down to 6 wounds from 10, which I did the 4 flyover mortals. And somehow he lost 2 more wounds. I can't remember off the top of my head how that happened now. Did I shoot him with... Couldn't have been the Menhirs, because the Menhirs do 6 damage. Unless I'm remembering how much damage they do. They don't just do 2 damage. I can't remember now. But there was some reason that I took some wounds off of him. So he was down to 4, which was really huge. It might have been the indirect from the king, maybe. I can't remember now. Anyways, he was down to 4 wounds, which is really helpful for me, because on my turn, what I did was, and I'll show it from this angle here, I basically had the Wraiths do flyover mortals like that and still kind of chill here. And what ended up happening is I moved everything else because he didn't have precision. So I was like, you know what, I'm bringing the Technomancer out. So I basically had the Wraiths group up here with a Flower Immortal, and then I'll chill in the ruin with Technomancer and the Reanimator back here. So he moves up, everyone else moves up from the Wraith unit. And that did enough. It was 4 wounds right there from the Flower Mortars to take this out and finally score me, bring it down in the 3rd round that I got it. Which was huge because it allowed me then to free up my shooting onto this guy. So what I decided to do then is it also helped because it popped the one of the biggest things I was thinking about was secure no man's land. I was gonna definitely get this. I was gonna see if I could try to get 2. So he in his turn he actually just killed the flayed ones, so they're on here. So what I did is I ended up moving out, and his chosen all jumped out of the emergency disembark from the rhino that blowed up, and then my wraiths basically dove into the Noise Marines and wiped the Noise Marines. So Noise Marines got 1 turn to tee off and did not kill the DD8, which was great. They did reactive move back to here when my wraiths did their little flower mortars on the rhino, but it was fine because I was still going to pile into them or charge into them anyways. So it's great. The Scorpions came in and really kind of whiffed. They really didn't do anything to the Chosen. I think they killed 1 guy, which I was kind of sad about. Just didn't really work out. Even with the dev wounds and reroll hits on the charge, really didn't help. But and the +1 hit on objective, so that kind of sucked. But here I managed to out OC him, and really I wanted to just kind of, I knew at this point, taking out his Rhino and taking out and getting involved with the Chosen, that I was just going to gum up the space and force him to have to fall back if he needed to. I was going to try to wrap him as much, but he could still fall back out of this lane if he could, but wrap him as much as I could. And then also that stops the tank from shooting into them, I think. I can't remember that. But anyway, so I then poised my king to pretty much get lines on things here, and the Hexmark in case anything came out this way. And I knew now his following turn he was going to come at me, but at least then I managed to, in round 3, score another 10 more, so I was getting 20 for sure. And I knew I was getting secure for here, and I popped the Rhino, so I was getting a nice 19 points right there. So at this point, I was, we're going into round 3, I wrote this down, I was up like 10 to, or I had 29 to his, at the time he had 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, yeah, so 29 to his 13. So I was pretty confident I was in the lead in terms of scoring. And so I was thinking, okay, let's just try to cause a mess here, get his focus here. These guys come in, I've got a DDA, and if I need to, the king can also try to come around and help if he needed to. So that was my turn. So I scored pretty easily here. And at this point, I'm noticing that nothing's really happening here. And so a lot of my attention was drawn to this fight down here and then this fight here. So in some ways it was easy for me, but I did know that he could now drop his Warp Talons or his Obliterators, and they still hadn't come down. And that was something I was still really concerned about, is where his where they were going. I was very conscious about, you can see, kind of see the Overlord there. I was very conscious about making sure I screen this out, and the Ophidians are now here, and they screened that out. And he actually came to my backline a couple times to try to sort of find spaces to put them down, and he made a couple comments like, wow, there really isn't a single gap anywhere. And I attributed that wholly to playing my buddy Derek, who plays Deathwatch, and I'm so used to him just uppy downing all over the place and being so concerned with making sure that I don't give him any gaps anywhere. Like even this here was, this whole spot was covered with a Reanimator, and then these guys to 9 inches somewhat. So really, he was probably not able to get in. Oh, actually, get in like anywhere like that. If we were doing, yeah, so something like this. I kind of covered the board, which was awesome. And so if he was going to drop here, fine, at least I could sort of deal with him head on. So on his turn, again, because I keep denying his primary here, he's only scoring 5 points. So he's only getting 5/5 for the first 3 rounds, which is great. He does draw Overwhelming Force and Sabotage, and so for him, Overwhelming Force he was going to either try to kill the race outright or Szeras, and he picked the race. They became his focus of hatred. Which in hindsight, I think he probably had better luck maybe going after Szeras because he had 2 lots of legionaries that he could jump out and try to fight Szeras. I think he may have underestimated how good Szeras is with his 4 up, 4 up. But anyways, he went for the race. So he came in, and you can see he does get overwhelmed with force because he just unloads into the race. And I knew that they weren't going to survive. They're not completely unkillable. And he basically brought. Oh, yes, I should mention. In my response, I popped the DD8 smacks back in my turn in turn 3 and kills this predator, which was big because it took off in terms of his turn. It took off a big threat for me on this side of the board of any kind of anti-tank threat. So yeah, on his turn, then he gets overwhelming force and sabotage. So what he does is he moves the Rhino to touch the objective. He chops out legionaries, and then they 1 unit of legionaries, so Chaos Lord and 5 of them, and they kind of just sit like this, and they something like that, and they charge into Szeras. He keeps the other unit sat inside as well. The cultists, he also has them move up, and they end up kind of doing this like stringed out line like this, because he advanced them up that way, and then he dropped in the obliterators, which you can see right there. His obliterators are here. So now I've got 1 unit down where I know what they are. Still don't have the warp talents down or the 2nd unit obliterators, so he still got a decent amount in his reserves. So that happens, and then over here I believe he dropped another unit of obliterators. I want to say these guys moved out and got a line on the Scorpex. I think he dropped another unit somewhere around here, and they unloaded. And pretty much between the Chosen who fell back, the tank shooting, Predator shooting, the obliterators, he basically wiped the race on his turn. Let's see if I have his turn. Yep. So actually, this is the end of the game, so I'll just show you from here. Yeah, race die. So he gets his overwhelming force. Technomancer stays alive, and somehow only 1 Scorpec dies, which was really surprising. I thought they would be dead. And Chosen are still alive. He has a unit of obliterators here. The tank is here. Another unit of obliterators up here. Like I said, Cultists kind of strung out like that. Rhino. And what's interesting over this fight here, out of the 5 plus the Chaos Lord 6 who fought him on the clapback, only the Lord and 1 guy was left alive. It was crazy. Szeras just kind of tanked everything and then smacked really hard. Really awesome job over here. At this point, then I think I still out OC'd him because I think he only had 1 OC and Szeras was 1 or 3 or 2. So I still had control of that. So that was his turn, and then on my turn, pretty much now I score another 10 because I still had these 2 objectives. And then so what we ended up doing was let me go back here and just delete this. There we go. Just so we can see where the board state is, which I didn't take any photos after this. The reason being is the game pretty much ended not long after this because these guys unloaded into the Predator and popped it pretty easily. I unfortunately forgot to declare the shots for the King's. What did I do? I believe I did. Oh yes, his obliterators. The obliterators that were here, they came in to fight the race, so they were like stood here. So I did 1 of the menhirs into obliterators, 1 of the menhirs into the Predator, and the King into the Predator as well. I think it was something like that. And so what ended up happening is I popped the Predator. I believe I also moved the DDA back into the range here, and so he could fire as well. So between the DDA and a menhir, the Predator died pretty easily. Unfortunately, because I forgot to declare the indirect for the King, and I declared his Sceptre into the Predator as well, so his Sceptre didn't get to fire because the Predator already died. Fine. And I forgot to do the indirect, so then he never got to fire that. So it's too bad I forgot that. That's something I need to remember to do. Then I did not fall back Szeras on purpose. I think I wanted to kind of just keep this gummed up. And this was interesting here. I had the Overlord, and I thought, well, the Obliterators are down. It's only the Warp Talons left. The Warp Talons want to drop down. They can because they're not a big threat to me right now because I'm focused on scoring primary. So I actually moved the Overlord up to here somewhere, and I could see the Rhino. The problem is he has a Tachyon arrow. Kind of trying him out with the Tachyon arrow. It's a one shot, but it's d6 plus 1 damage, and I thought 7 damage is still not going to pop the guy doing sabotage. And I thought, you know what, it's not really going to help. But I had him there anyways, so that if I needed to, he could come onto the objective and join the fight. And maybe just keep OC, keep me holding primary. So, yeah, on my turn, I scored 10, like I said, and I got Tempting Target and Engage on all fronts. Now, he naturally chose this as his Tempting Target because there was a lot of stuff here and I'd lost the rates. So he still had like 9 chosen on there, and I had 2 Scorpex, which I managed to res a third one back. So somehow the Scorpex survive, and they're like chilling here. And the race don't exist, and the chosen. So it's like, it looks more like this, right? Technomancer by himself. These are the chosen, Obliterators, and they're dead. He's dead. And I'm thinking, okay, I don't think I can out OC this because I don't know how much I can actually kill at this point. I've only got the Scorpex and the Technomancer there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say that Tempting Target's not going to happen, and I'm just going to go engage on all fronts. So I pick up the Ophidians on his turn, and my Ophidians drop down back here. And I think now I can actually show the next slide. So you can see what happens. My Ophidians drop here to give me engage, so I managed to get 4 table quarters easily with these units, no problem. And then what I did is I decided to see if I can in round 4 start to burn this objective. So I moved the Imotekh got to here the previous round and then advanced up to here to try and get involved. Unfortunately, the Reanimator was here and could not quite touch the objective. You can see the line there. I was hoping that one of them could burn, or I could burn it, and he basically wouldn't be able to kill both of them, maybe, depending on what resources he had left. Oh yeah, I forgot to say, he also had a Cypher who didn't really do much all game. He was there, and he was actually here at the start of the game, then he moved to here, and then he moved to here, but nothing really happened with him. As you can see here, his Legionnaires, which the Overlord came in, basically just died. He never dropped the other Legionnaires. This Rhino's been moved back because it was end of the game, but he was still sat there, and there was nothing they could really do. Szeras was healing back up every round, and so it was kind of tough. Just leave that drawing there. So I was holding this objective pretty comfortably. The DDA that was here moved into here, and that allowed him to actually then do 2 things. One, he could see through the window. It was like a window gap somewhere or something like this to see over to this side to help with the firing. And then I had the, he could see a line. This is why it's so good when they're in the ruins through the window at cultist mob that had like strung out. So with the flayers, and he was within rapid fire range because it was like, yeah, it was within rapid fire range. He basically killed the cultist mob in one go, which was awesome. So then he basically only had the Legionnaires to come deal with this, which I think he still could have probably dealt with, but I was still going to score 10 for this one because I now held these 3. What was interesting though, on my turn, when I assumed Tempting Target wasn't going to happen. However, I had moved the king up and then charged him in and killed enough. I killed a couple of the chosen. So I think he had like, I want to say 5 chosen and 2 obliterators left. And I think that was 7 OC altogether. And what I managed to do, my Technomancer was still touching on this side. This is 2, 4, 6. This is 7. This is 8. I managed to just get 1 more OC on there with 1 Menhir touching on the charge onto the Obliterator, which was huge. And then that ended up giving me Tempting Target. And at that point then, I now denied him here. I had all of these objectives. It was pretty much, he only could score 5, so he ended up scoring 5, 5, 5 every round until the last round, which was huge. At this point, he basically saw the writing on the wall and decided to concede, so we kind of talked it out. He drew to Svenholm's Stronghold and established Locus. We said his Warp Talons, who finally came down here, maybe could have come up here, avoid the Overwatch with the Hexmark, and then gone in, or they could just come out and go in and try to stop the burn happening. So I said, sure, let's just assume you stop the burn happening, but regardless, they weren't going to survive, and then he didn't really have anything left. He had Defend Stronghold here, but I think I could have, and I gave it to him anyways, but I'm pretty sure I could have denied it because I would have just walked up on, touched the objective, and he only had 2 OC here, and I would have had 3 guys on there and could have denied defend, but I gave it to him anyways, didn't matter. And that also kind of, let's imagine keeping them there would cause the obliterators to move off the objective, but he stickied it, so it didn't matter. Yeah, so that was kind of the end of the game. We said he wouldn't be able to establish Locust because he had nothing to get on there to shoot with. I guess maybe the Cypher could have done it, because he only had to be within 6 inches. But we agreed that he was going to come over here and do stuff. Anyways, that was kind of where it ended up. We just talked throughout the rest of the game out, said that I would easily score my 15 if I burned things. And the king was probably going to wipe this, and these guys were going to wipe that on my turn. I can't believe these Scorpec still survived, so they would have probably gone into something like that. And I still had my DDAs that I would still, blast into whoever that came out. So yeah, that was pretty much the game. So all in all, I think it really was a good game because I really rely on, at least this list that I have, really relies on spending the first couple of rounds trying to just whittle down the opponent. And often what I'm doing is kind of just chilling. I mean, on this map here with Crucible Deployment, Crucible of Battle, I'm kind of just trying to like hold, whoops, things not working here. Kind of just hold something like this range. We gave him this maybe, and that was kind of where I was trying to figure out like which objective did I want to hold, and I ended up getting both. But my list is really just kind of sitting back, whittle down, and then through reanimation, through just very durable units overall, and also the rates, just kind of win in the long game and score points at the end game. But I started off pretty strong, and the game kind of went my way. I think one of the biggest things was definitely the move blocks here. Tomb Blades stopping this Rhino from really going anywhere for like Tomb Blades plus then the Scarabs who came in for 2 rounds. It just sat there. I think that was huge. And then I could really then just focus on this. And then the Flayed ones also stopping the Chosen, I think was good as well. Wish the Noise Marines didn't come in here. I think maybe I could have perhaps screened the Wraiths a little bit better, so that they can't get past the Ruin to get a line on the DDA. But then again, if I just didn't put the DDA out in the open and I just kept it back here, then I wouldn't have to worry about that issue. Yeah, so overall it was great. I might even actually drop the Reanimator, because the Reanimator, I mean, it is great for a little bit of extra reanimation, but that's all he ever does, and sometimes even doesn't really get much value out of it. And I think I'd rather drop them for another unit of Tomb Blades, so I could have had one unit go like that, block this, and then another unit could have gone here, move 12, and then maybe shot something, and then move blocked here as well. And if they could do that, I think they probably would have only got about there, but even then, that actually would have stopped his Rhino. So I think, or maybe they could actually go, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Right, so they could easily probably get to about here, move 12, which I think is about that much. Shoot, there was like a Rhino here, shoot anything here, and then even move another 6 more, and really actually get to there. So yeah, so that would have been really nice if they could do that. And then that would have been big for me as well. So another move block would be cool, because then I really would have just had like that line control of the game early on. So yeah, I think I'm gonna put another one. I took out the CCB, the Catacomb Command Podge, in place of an Overlord, and I think I prefer it because the Overlord was easily able to kind of just chill here, both screen out, but then also give an aura to this side. So in this particular deployment, he was great. If I had the CCB probably would have had to maybe go here or stay out here somewhere. And I just think that's a little too exposed for my liking. So having the Overlord was kind of helpful. I could have didn't get a chance to use his Tachyon Arrow. But I think that also kind of is a nice little extra little punch for something that's a little bit tougher. Maybe if I somehow had whittled down the Rhino another couple of wounds, he could have actually made a difference and killed the Rhino. Overall, it was great. This feels good. I pack a punch with the 2 DDAs and the King. There's a lot of damage output, and then also still very durable as well. Hard to shift with, not to mention the Wraiths and Szeras himself also holding down the fort. Overall, great list. Feels good. And yeah, hope you enjoyed that. I kind of rabbled on for a long time. Hopefully it's not too long of a video. Thank you for watching, and next time I play again, I'll do another one of these, because that's helped me kind of internalize a lot and reflect as well. Hope that helped. See you later.